And that's what this movement genuinely is. Here to give us a little bit of the international perspective is a woman I first met over Facebook when she was in Japan doing her activism, and I was putting the podcast together, and we actually did a Skype interview at that time, and she's got quite a story to tell you, and she's here from Southern California to tell you this. Please welcome Cathy Iwane.
Good morning. After 25 years in Japan, I evacuated with my two daughters due to the nuclear meltdowns of March 11, 2011. We lived with a Geiger counter for a year, measuring radioactivity in foods and in our environment. Last August, we measured my favorite local sashimi. It's called Modori Gatsuo, and it's skipjack tuna, to be highly radioactive. Mind you, our prefecture, Wakayama, is a full 380 miles away from the Fukushima reactors. And yet last October, a city councilman's test soils revealed radioactive cesium to be 5 times pre-Fukushima levels. After researching ingredients in my daughter's elementary school lunches, I discovered that only 60% of these ingredients were locally procured. The remainder came from outside areas, including near Fukushima. I opted out of the school lunch program, but the principal of my daughter's school, sitting right here, told me, please do not share this information with the PTA or your other mother friends, as this will surely cause panic. My daughter was told to lie to her classmates and the rest of the school that she had an allergy, and thus the homemade lunch. Just last week, Tokyo's Fuchu School City District sent home letters to the parents telling them that radioactive milk from Fukushima would be diluted with milk from other areas in Japan and served to their children for lunch. You might be asking, what kind of society would sacrifice its children like this? Before the disaster, anything measuring over 100 becquerels of cesium per kilogram was labeled nuclear waste. Shockingly, this April, the government told us that this same measurement of contamination in food is safe for us to eat. Many Japanese now know that their government has sold them out. In favor of financially bailing out TEPCO, the owners of the reactors, the government continues to sacrifice children living very near the no-go zone in Fukushima, in highly, highly contaminated radiation hotspots. It is unconscionable that the government doled out another $12.8 billion check this July to keep TEPCO afloat, while 1 in 3 children remain in Fukushima and are being diagnosed with irregularities and growths of the thyroid gland due to radiation contamination. It is a travesty that radioactive debris from the disaster area is now being shipped as far as 1,500 kilometers to southern Japan. It's not just Tokyo, it's southern Japan, to be burned in incinerators. These incinerators are ill-equipped to filter out any radioactivity. This is a regular incinerator made for regular waste. It's happening now in 13 municipalities. The government is paying them to accept radioactive debris all over Japan. This radioactivity escapes into the air, is rained down on the people, onto their crops, into their streams, and further contaminates the food supply. That the taxpayers must foot the bill for their own demise, despite the screams of mothers pleading for their children, despite the 7 million Japanese citizens that have signed petitions for the ending of nuclear power in Japan, this is unthinkable. After all, would not the taxpayers choose to rescue their fellow man? in lieu of saving TEPCO and the government responsible for this disaster? Perhaps you are celebrating Japan's announcement last week to phase out nuclear power by 2030. It's a start, but you need to read the small print. Are you aware that Japan will go forward constructing 3 new nuclear power plants? This is pre-planned, contracted deals. Do you know that Japan will continue to export nuclear power plants and its technologies? Clearly, the hundreds and thousands of Japanese protesting Prime Minister Noda's cozy relationship with the nuclear industry is not enough. We need your help. This is just a foresight of what could happen in our own country. Wake up! Are you aware that Fukushima reactors are still too hot to cap and fully shut down? They continue to release huge amounts of radiation contamination into our ocean. Not just around Japan, it's our ocean and our atmosphere. Our tuna migrate from Japan and they are highly contaminated. Our milk in Northern California measured record amounts of cesium, well above EPA limits. This is not in the headlines. Wake up, everybody. Our 23 General Electric Mark I nuclear reactors, the same one that failed us in Fukushima, those ones in America are also placed near or on fault lines, just like in Japan. Can you fathom how devastating it is to leave one's spouse, one's family, one's friends, one's roots, one's life in order to protect your children? Do you get the connection? This is not just a Japanese thing. This is not just a Chernobyl thing. This is not just a 3 Mile Island thing. This is our thing. The U.S. is being hit with Fukushima fallout. It is appalling that this is not an integral part of the election conversations this year. Let's make it a part of these conversations starting today. I pray that the U.S. learns the lessons of Fukushima before history repeats itself. In solidarity with Japan, and in closing, I'd like to use, in the words of Nobel laureate novelist Kenzaburo Oe, I believe the only way to preserve human life is to completely turn away from nuclear power. Thank you.
Yeah.